Mobile Legends made a lot of changes these past few months, and I think the goal is to bring back the old rotations and strategies. But if you see, it's not that easy to get rid of the funnel strategy. Many players and teams are still sticking to it because of the fighter player's effectiveness and freedom to choose their hero. So for today's video, we will be talking about one of the most effective offlaner in today's meta, Esmeralda. So I'm Enzo, and this is Yugatech Gaming. During the early days in playing Mobile Legends, it's really hard to mix and match mages in the game. But luckily, Esmeralda came. Who would not want to use a mage that has the ability of a tank? This is a really unique feature. That's why she can also focus in many ways, especially in today's meta. She can be a funnel or the jungler of your team, and she can also be an offlaner. And whatever role she chooses, she can pretty much dominate it. She has the ability to damage very well when she becomes the funnel of your team and can sustain a lot of damage when she needs to be an offlaner. And now, enough with the introductions, let's now proceed to the preparations. The first is for Esmeralda's useful emblem. It consists of level 3 mastery for an additional 5% of cooldown reduction. It can be beneficial for Esmeralda to have as much cooldown reduction for her to spam her skills and gain many shields. This emblem also consists of level 3 observation for an extra 6 points of magic penetration, and lastly, Impure Rage for the talent. This talent, Esmeralda will deal extra magic damage every time she hits the enemy using her skill, will most likely happen since Esmeralda greatly depends on her skills to fight enemies. Also, the talent will help Esmeralda in terms of mana regeneration. Next, let us talk about the spells that you can use when using Esmeralda. First off, you must know your team's role, whether you will be the funnel or the mid laner or go to the side lane. I suggest that you pick the Retribution spell if you're going to the mid lane because you'll greatly need it for farming and securing objectives like the buffs and the turtles. But in the other hand, if you're going to the side lanes, you must choose the Purify spell for additional mobility because commonly you will have to take the lane alone, so you will be prone to getting ambushed. Now let's talk about the essential part of the preparation, which is the item builds. First, for the boots. I suggest that you choose from the tough boots or the warrior boots. Though Esmeralda is considered as a tank, she can be very soft and can easily be killed in the most parts in the early game. That is why it will be a big help for her to have that extra durability to make a good transition in the late game. Of course, you must choose the warrior boots if you have many enemies that rely on their physical damage, while on the other hand, if your enemies depend on the magic damage, choose the tough boots. Next off is the Enchanted Talisman. The stats and abilities of this item are much needed for Esmeralda. It will give you additional 50 points of magic power, 250 points of health, and 20% of cooldown reduction. That's honestly a lot of perks for an item, and it's really perfect and complements well with Esmeralda's skills. It also has a passive that regenerates 15% of your max mana every 10 seconds. The next item is a defensive one, which is the Oracle. I recommend that you always purchase this item whenever using Esmeralda. Even if you don't have any magic ability related opponents, Oracle is a must-have for Esmeralda because of its passive that allow you to obtain more shield absorption and HP regeneration by 30%. Aside from that, it will also give an additional 850 points of health, 42 points of magic defense, and an extra 10% cooldown reduction. The next item is the Feather of Heaven. This item will help improve Esmeralda's basic attack ability. It has a passive that makes her basic attack deal 40% of the hero's magic power as extra magic damage. It will also give you additional 65 points of magic power, 5% movement speed, and of course 30% attack speed. Next is the Holy Crystal. This item is a percentile magic power. It will increase your magic power by 21 to 35% that scales with your hero's level. It will also give you an extra 100 points of magic power. This is an excellent item in the late game to have enough firepower to kill your enemies. And now for the last item. You can decide whether you need more damage or durability. If you want to have more damage, you can acquire the Genius Wand or the Glowing Wand. But if you think that you already have enough damage, you can go for the Queen's Wings or Immortality. Now let's talk about the skills of Esmeralda. First is her passive, the Star Moon Casket. Relying on the energy of the Star Moon Casket, Esmeralda manipulates the Stardust and Frost Moon. Each of her basic attack skills deals damage twice. Also, the Stardust deals physical damage damage, and the Frost Moon deals magic damage and can give the target a shield equal to 135% of Frost Moon's damage dealt. The damage dealt by Esmeralda ignores all shield effects, meanwhile transforming her skills into HP. Next is her first skill, the Frost Moon Shield. Esmeralda generates a shield to herself and increases her movement speed by 40%. Meanwhile, she gradually transforms her enemy's shield into her own shield, capped at 50% of her max HP. Next is her second skill, the Stardust Dance. Esmeralda waves Stardust and Frost Moon and deals with physical damage and magical damage to a nearby enemy. Using this skill and hitting an opponent will reduce the cooldown of the Frost Moon shield. And lastly is her ultimate skill, the Falling Star Moon. Esmeralda coheres the power of the astral space into Stardust and Frost Moon. The longer the duration lasts, the greater the power will be. Use this skill again to cast the Stardust to a designated location, dealing physical damage. Then Esmeralda sends herself to a selected area to release the Frost Moon, dealing magical damage. Falling Star Moon is an initiation skill that closes the gap between Esmeralda and her enemies. This skill provides high burst damage to multiple enemy heroes if followed by the casting of the Stardust Dance. And lastly, let us talk about the tips and tricks in playing Esmeralda. The first tip that I can give you is to be a generous skill dealer. You must always use your skill to spam creeps and harass opponents in your lane to make them uncomfortable. Next is always mind the shield you obtain. Always use proper timing in using the first skill and the second skill to make sure that your shield won't expire when the fight occurs. It will be a huge help for you when you use Esmeralda if you know how to time your skills and obtain more shields to last longer in battles. The next tip that I can give you is always be mindful of your enemy's items. Usually when you have enemies that regenerate a lot of skills and have shield absorption like Thamos, Uranus, HARASS, and Esmeralda, you will most likely build counter items like the Deadly Blade and the Necklace of Durance. If your enemies have those items, you must be careful because they will lessen your ability to regenerate and absorb shields that will weaken you. Lastly, for the tips, you must prioritize your targets. I suggest you try to attack your enemy's backline or the marksman and the supports. Since Esmeralda is a melee hero and doesn't have long range ability, she will be very vulnerable to the marksman and the support of your enemies. That's why you have to time your ultimate skill and make sure you hit those targets. And another trick that I can give you is that you can choose your first skill instead of your second skill in the early game if you want to harass your enemies. So that's pretty much it. These are just some fundamentals so you can learn how to use Esmeralda efficiently. Also, these things are not fixed and can be changed according to your game style. But nonetheless, I hope you learned a lot in this video, and if you did, be sure to give us a like, subscribe to our channel for more content, hit the bell icon so you won't miss any future uploads, and be sure to visit yugatech.com/gaming for more news, tips, and tricks. It's your boy Yenzo, and stay safe.